Behind the glamour of Hollywood's golden age were real people living real love stories. Some of these relationships lasted decades, weathering the unique pressures of fame and the entertainment industry. Others ended too soon, leaving behind memories that would last lifetimes. These weren't scripted romances with guaranteed happy endings. These were partnerships built on genuine connection, tested by time, and remembered long after the cameras stopped rolling. Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. When Katharine Hepburn met Spencer Tracy in 1942 to discuss Woman of the Year, she knew right away that she found him irresistible. Tracy was 41, married since 1923, father to 2 children, including a deaf son. He was also battling alcoholism and severe depression. Hepburn was 34, recently divorced, fiercely independent. Tracy remained married throughout their 26-year relationship. His wife Louise chose not to pursue divorce, and Hepburn never interfered. They maintained separate residences and were careful not to be seen together in public, building a life in the margins of Hollywood respectability. Hepburn devoted herself to making Tracy's life easier, describing him as tortured. She took care of him, adapted to his preferences, and put his needs ahead of her own career. They made 9 films together, their chemistry so natural that audiences assumed they were simply playing themselves. Their final film was Guess Who's Coming to Dinner in 1967. Tracy was very ill during production, able to work only a few hours each day. 17 days after filming wrapped, on June 10, 1967, Tracy died of a heart attack at the home he and Hepburn shared. She was with him when he died, but did not attend the funeral out of respect for his family. Only after Louise's death in 1983 did Hepburn begin to publicly acknowledge what Tracy had meant to her. In a 1986 documentary, she read aloud a letter she had written to him after his death, her voice shaking as she described lying beside him in his final nights. She died in 2003 at age 96, having lived 36 years beyond him. Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall. In 1944, 19-year-old Lauren Bacall walked onto the set of To Have and Have Not to film her first major role opposite 45-year-old Humphrey Bogart. He was married to his 3rd wife in a notoriously volatile relationship. 3 weeks into filming, he stopped by her trailer one evening to say goodnight, leaned over, and kissed her. When the film wrapped, Bogart sent Bacall a note telling her that saying goodbye felt like dying a little. He worked through a difficult divorce, and they married on May 21, 1945. She was 20, he was 45, and Hollywood assumed it wouldn't last. Between children and making films together, including The Big Sleep, they built a life that transcended the complications. Both had affairs during their marriage, but they remained devoted in ways that went beyond simple fidelity. In January 1956, Bogart was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. Bacall slept beside him in the hospital, holding his stitches together when they came undone. He died at home on January 14, 1957. She married twice more, but never stopped considering Bogart the great love of her life. When she published his love letters in 2000, she wrote that no one had written a romance better than they lived it. She died in 2014 at age 89, 57 years after losing him. Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward. On a hot August day in 1952, 22-year-old Joanne Woodward walked into her agent's office and encountered 27-year-old Paul Newman in a seersucker suit. Her first impression was disgust. Newman was far more intrigued. They were both cast as understudies in the Broadway production of Picnic. Newman was married with 3 children. Woodward was dating men like Gore Vidal and Marlon Brando. But as they worked together, something developed. By 1957, they no longer bothered concealing their romance. Newman left his wife, and on January 29, 1958, they married in Las Vegas. 2 months later, Woodward won the Academy Award for Best Actress. They settled in Connecticut and had 3 daughters. The disparity in their fame created tensions. Newman was perpetually voted one of the sexiest men alive, while Woodward aged out of leading roles. In 1978, Newman's oldest son, Scott, died of an overdose, devastating the couple. They threw themselves into philanthropy, creating foundations and camps for children. Through it all, they kept working together. In a 1998 interview, Newman attributed their longevity to lust and respect and patience and determination. In 2002, Woodward said Newman was still making out with her in the backseat of cars when they were in their 80s. Newman famously told reporters he didn't need to go out for hamburger when he had steak at home. They spent 50 years together as Hollywood's golden couple. Newman died of lung cancer on September 26, 2008. Woodward, now 94, continues to live quietly in Connecticut. Myrna Loy and Arthur Hornblow Jr. Myrna Loy had begun dating producer Arthur Hornblow Jr. in 1932 when he was still married. They married in 1936 in Mexico, just as Loy was becoming one of Hollywood's biggest stars after The Thin Man made her America's perfect wife. Hornblow was an accomplished producer responsible for films like Ruggles of Red Gap and would later produce classics starring Bob Hope. The couple's plan to marry quietly was disrupted by photographers and reporters, leading Loy to complain that she couldn't see what her marriage had to do with her work. By the late 30s, Loy was the highest-paid actress in Hollywood, voted queen to Clark Gable's king. But the marriage was struggling. On June 1, 1942, Loy divorced Hornblow in Reno, citing mental cruelty. Remarkably, both attended a divorce party together, maintaining a friendship that would last the rest of their lives. 6 days after the divorce, she married John Hertz Jr., but that marriage lasted only 2 years. She would marry twice more, but according to her autobiography, Arthur Hornblow appeared to be the love of her life, even though their marriage dissolved. Loy remained close to Hornblow's son from his first marriage and even left him part of her estate. She admitted in her memoir that she was not good at marriage, although she always longed to be the perfect wife. Hornblow remarried in 1945 to writer Leonora Shinasi and remained married until his death in 1976. Loy died in 1993 at age 88, having never quite recaptured what she'd had with Hornblow. Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz met on the set of Too Many Girls in 1940. She was 28, he was 23, a Cuban bandleader already engaged to someone else. The attraction was immediate, and they eloped by the end of the year. The marriage was tumultuous from the start. Arnaz's band required constant touring, and there were other women. By 1944, Ball filed for divorce over his drinking and infidelity, but they reconciled. Searching for a way to keep him in one place, Ball pushed for them to work together on a television version of her radio show. CBS doubted American viewers would accept a Cuban as the husband of a red-haired American actress. Ball and Arnaz toured as a vaudeville act to prove them wrong. In October 1951, I Love Lucy premiered, making them household names and changing television forever. They formed Desilu Productions, the first independent television production company. In 1953, Ball gave birth to their son, Desi Jr., on the same day her character, Lucy Ricardo, gave birth on screen. Behind the scenes, Arnaz continued drinking and having affairs. Gossip magazines published details, humiliating Ball publicly. In 1960, after 20 years of marriage, Ball filed for divorce. She called it a nightmare in court. Ball bought out Arnaz's share of Desilu and became the first female head of a major television production company. Both remarried, but they stayed close. When Arnaz was diagnosed with lung cancer in the mid-80s, he and Ball spoke on the phone several times a day. He died on December 2, 1986. Ball died 3 years later on April 26, 1989. Their legacy lived on in endless reruns of I Love Lucy, a show they created to save a marriage that couldn't be saved. Ronald Reagan and Nancy Davis. In 1951, Nancy Davis contacted the Screen Actors Guild because another actress with her name had appeared on the Hollywood blacklist. The Guild president was Ronald Reagan, recently divorced from Jane Wyman. They met to discuss her predicament, and the attraction was immediate. Davis later said her life truly began when she met Ronnie. Reagan had been one of Hollywood's most eligible bachelors, but felt lost after his divorce. Davis was determined to rescue him. On his 41st birthday, Reagan proposed. They wed on March 4, 1952. Their daughter Patty was born 7 months later. Son Ron arrived in 1958. Davis retired from acting to focus on being Mrs. Ronald Reagan. When Reagan entered politics, running for governor of California in 1966, she became the socially adept First Lady. Her devotion was always apparent, from the way she gazed at him during speeches to their constant hand-holding. Reagan's political career accelerated, and he won the presidency in 1980. After John Hinckley Jr.'s assassination attempt in 1981, Davis became even more protective. Reagan wrote love letters to his wife throughout their marriage, telling her she had rescued him from a completely empty life. After they left the White House in 1989, Reagan was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Davis spent the next decade as his primary caregiver, watching the man she loved slowly disappear. Reagan died on June 5, 2004. The world watched Davis kiss her husband's casket goodbye. She spent the next 12 years advocating for Alzheimer's research. She died on March 6, 2016, at age 94. They had been married for 52 years, and she had spent another 12 without him, never wavering in her devotion. James Stewart and Gloria Hattrick McLean. For most of his career, James Stewart was Hollywood's great American bachelor, dating some of the industry's most beautiful women but never settling down. In the summer of 1948, Gary Cooper and his wife Rocky arranged for Stewart to meet Gloria Hattrick McLean, a divorced mother of 2 sons. Stewart fell in love at first sight. Their courtship centered around golf. On his 41st birthday, Stewart proposed. They married on August 9, 1949. Stewart immediately adopted Gloria's 2 sons, Ronald and Michael, becoming a father overnight. In May 1951, Gloria gave birth to twin daughters, Judy and Kelly. The delivery was difficult, and Gloria spent a month in the hospital. Stewart practically lived there with her. When she was finally discharged, he was so excited he nearly drove his car into the hospital lobby, then realized he'd forgotten to put his wife in the car. The marriage was considered one of Hollywood's most successful. Stewart kept his Hollywood career separate from his home life. At work, he was a cinema legend. At home, he was simply Dad. In 1993, Gloria was diagnosed with lung cancer after smoking 2 packs a day for 50 years. Stewart's family said he delivered a heartbreaking monologue to his dying wife about their 45 years together and how she had been his rudder. Without her, he would be lost at sea. Gloria died on February 16, 1994, at age 75. Stewart withdrew from all public activities. In December 1996, when his pacemaker needed replacing, Stewart opted not to have it done. On July 2, 1997, James Stewart died at age 89. His last words were, "I'm going to be with Gloria now." He had waited his whole life to find the right person, found her at 41, and loved her until his last breath. Danny Kaye and Sylvia Fine. Danny Kaye and Sylvia Fine met in 1939 while working on a Broadway musical review. She was a talented composer and lyricist from a well-to-do Brooklyn family. He was a struggling performer, the son of Russian Jewish immigrants, a high school dropout. But their wit meshed perfectly. When the show closed after a short run, they eloped to Fort Lauderdale on January 3, 1940. 3 years later, they held a formal wedding ceremony to satisfy her parents. Fine became the creative force behind Kay's career, writing the complex, playful songs that made him famous, including Anatole of Paris and Melody in 4F. She wrote approximately 100 numbers for him over the years. Their partnership was intense and complicated. Fine managed, organized, and produced much of Kay's work while he became one of Hollywood's biggest stars. But the dynamic created tension. In September 1947, they separated briefly. Fine had been controlling, even conducting from the piano, to manipulate how Kay sang. Kay felt his success was being attributed entirely to her. They had a daughter, Dina, born in December 1946, but even that didn't immediately fix the marriage. After 7 months apart, they reunited and remained together. Fine later admitted her mistakes, acknowledging that she had tried to control Danny and failed to realize that no one can possess another person. Despite the rocky period and rumors of affairs on both sides, they stayed married. Kay often said he was a wife-made man and that he had a fine head on his shoulders. Fine continued writing for Kay's films and television shows while also building her own career, teaching musical comedy at Yale and USC and producing award-winning television specials. They remained married for 47 years until Kay's death on March 3, 1987. Fine died 4 years later on October 28, 1991, of emphysema at age 78. Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee. Ruby Dee met Ossie Davis in 1946 when they were both cast in the Broadway play Jeb. Her first impression was not favorable. She thought he was peculiar-looking, tall as a string bean with an Adam's apple that stuck out. But one day during rehearsals, she watched him on stage and saw him differently. They married in 1948 and settled into a life that would span nearly 60 years. They moved to New Rochelle and had 3 children. They became fixtures of American theater, film, and television, often working together. More importantly, they became activists, close friends with Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. They helped organize the 1963 March on Washington and served as its MCs. Davis delivered the eulogy at Malcolm X's funeral. In their joint autobiography, published in 1998, they surprised readers by revealing they had experimented with an open marriage. They explained that they had observed it wasn't extramarital sex that destroyed marriages, but the lies and deception. They gave themselves permission to sleep with other partners as long as what they did was honest and private. But they came to realize they really only wanted each other. It was like a rediscovery. Sex was fine, Davis concluded, but love was better. They returned to monogamy, and what mattered most was the bedrock of their relationship, built on honesty, mutual respect, and shared purpose. They worked together constantly and used their platform to push for social change. In 1995, they received the National Medal of Arts. In 2004, they received the Kennedy Center Honors. Davis once said that 50 years of marriage had taught him that the way to possess all women was to love one woman well. Davis died on February 4, 2005, at age 87. Dee lived another 9 years, passing away on June 11, 2014. She was 91. They had been married for 56 years, partners in art and activism. Johnny Cash and June Carter. Johnny Cash first saw June Carter perform in 1956. She was a member of the legendary Carter family. He was a rising star in country music. Cash was married with 4 daughters, but he felt an immediate connection to Carter. By the early 60s, Cash's life was spiraling. He was addicted to amphetamines and barbiturates. His behavior was erratic, and his marriage was collapsing. Carter saw what was happening and stayed close, trying to help. In 1963, Carter co-wrote Ring of Fire, claiming later that the song was about her feelings for Cash, about falling helplessly into love with someone she shouldn't love. Both married other people briefly in the mid-60s, but both marriages failed. On February 22, 1968, during a live performance in London, Ontario, Cash proposed to Carter on stage in front of the entire audience. She said yes, and the crowd erupted. They married on March 1, 1968. Carter gave birth to their son John Carter Cash in 1970. Together, they worked to build a life that honored both their music and their faith. Carter helped Cash battle his addictions, and though he relapsed several times, he credited her with saving his life. They performed together constantly, their duets becoming beloved in country music history. By the early 2000s, both were in poor health. Carter underwent heart surgery in May 2003, but never fully recovered. She died on May 15, 2003, at age 73. Cash was devastated. He had told interviewers for years that June was the love of his life. 4 months after June's death on September 12, 2003, Johnny Cash died of complications from diabetes at age 71. Some said he died of a broken heart. Before his death, he recorded a final album that included a cover of Hurt, the music video showing Cash as an old man surrounded by memories. They had been married for 35 years. Carter had walked into Cash's life when he was at his worst and helped him find his way back.